This is Jarrod Horak, and it's Wednesday, June 12th, and the Triple Crown Series is over now. So in this video, I'm going to take a look at what's next for the Triple Crown Series participants, and then some of the other promising 3-year-olds that did not run in the Triple Crown Series. Now, this is a wide-open 3-year-old division, to say the least, in 2024. And the 3-year-old title is up for grabs as we head into the second half of the year. Now, for the Triple Crown Series, we had 3 different winners of the Triple Crown Series races, and then prior to the Kentucky Derby, 20 different winners in the final 25 Kentucky Derby points races. So these horses keep taking turns beating each other, and we'll have to see what the second half of the year brings. So I'm going to go through in alphabetical order. I'm going to start with the Triple Crown Series participants, talk about what's next for them, and then after that, I'm going to take a look at plans for some of the other promising 3-year-olds that did not run in the Triple Crown Series. And again, if you like these videos, don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, and share. And now we'll go through and we'll start with Antiquarian. Now, Antiquarian, for trainer Todd Pletcher, he won the Peter Pan Stakes prior to finishing 5th in the Belmont Stakes. And he came out of the Belmont in good order, and it looks like a possible start for him at Saratoga on July 27th would be the Jim Dandy Stakes. We'll have to see if they go there or not. He won the Grade 3 Peter Pan, but he's going to have to step it up against Grade 1 Company the second half of the year. Now, Catching Freedom, for trainer Brad Cox, he won the Louisiana Derby, and then he was 4th in the Kentucky Derby and then 3rd in the Preakness. In the Kentucky Derby, he followed Mystik Dan up the rail, but he couldn't quite go with that one late. A decent 4th in a 20-horse field. And then in the Preakness Stakes, wet, speed-favoring track, he was closing ground in the stretch. He was getting to Mystik Dan for that runner-up spot. Couldn't quite get past that one, so he was 3rd in the Preakness Stakes. And he did get back on the work tab after the Preakness, and that was on June 8th at Churchill Downs, 4 furlongs and 49.60. So his next start, I'm not really sure where they're going to go next, but races like the Jim Dandy, the Haskell, the Travers, they all make sense for this horse. Dornoch, your upset Belmont Stakes winner, and he rediscovered his sharp 2-year-old form in that Belmont Stakes. And he was definitely helped by a forwardly placed trip. And also, the pace setter there, Seize the Grey, was tired after running so many races in a short time frame. So then Dornoch just tracked that one, and he was able to get the jump on the closers. A good effort there for Dornoch, getting back to that good form. And it was a speed-favoring track at Saratoga on June 8th as well. So it looks like for him, the Grade 1 Travers is going to be his main summer target. But they are considering the Haskell Stakes at Monmouth Park on July 20th. So we'll have to see what Danny Gargan decides to do. And if any of these horses can put together back-to-back races, that's been the problem with a lot of these horses. They'll run a big race, like Mystik Dan did in the Derby, like Seize the Grey did in the Preakness, and like Dornoch did in the Belmont. But then when they come back in their next starts, they just don't duplicate those efforts. And we're going to need to see more consistency, especially if they want to win the 3-year-old title. Now, Fierceness, he's another one, very inconsistent. He's capable of huge efforts, like the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, but then he wasn't nearly as good when he lost his first start this year in the Holy Bull, and then he bounced back with a big victory in the Florida Derby, and then he was nowhere in the Kentucky Derby. They considered him for the Belmont. They decided he wasn't ready for that race, so now the Haskell Stakes might be his next start. And his most recent workout, 4 furlongs and 50 seconds flat at Saratoga on May 24th. And after they decided they were going to back off on the Belmont, they backed off a little bit on his training. Now they say that his next workout could come on June 14th. So we'll have to see if he works. And if he continues to show more energy, it makes it look like he could be a Haskell player. We'll have to see how all of that plays out for trainer Todd Pletcher and owner Mike Rapoli. Now, Honor Marie, he was 8th in the Kentucky Derby and then 4th in the Belmont Stakes. And he's going to be stabled at Saratoga this summer. Races like the Jim Dandy and Travers seem to be in play for him. His a big problem is that he's a deep closer, and he usually leaves himself with too much to do in the stretch. Now, Mindframe, for trainer Todd Pletcher and Mike Rapoli, all options seem to be on the table for him. Haskell, Jim Dandy, Travers as well. He's one that they also have, as I said, these connections also have Fierceness. So they're not going to run those horses against each other. So if Fierceness does go for the Haskell, then most likely Mindframe will go for the Jim Dandy. Or they could swap positions. Maybe Mindframe goes in the Haskell. We'll just have to see how all that plays out as they train up to these races and see how these horses do. But at this point, Fierceness is targeting the Haskell Stakes, and Mindframe could end up in the Jim Dandy and Travels. We'll have to see how it goes. Now for him, won his first 2 starts very impressively, and then in the Belmont Stakes, he had every chance. It looked like he was going to get past Dornoch. He actually did have the lead in the stretch, but then he started drifting out. He was wandering, and he didn't run a quality race in the stretch. Kind of lost his focus there. Only his 3rd lifetime start. He has a lot of upside, and Mindframe's one to definitely watch the second half of the year. Mystik Dan was the only horse to compete in all 3 Triple Crown Series races this year for trainer Kenny McPeak. It just looked like he was out of gas in the Belmont Stakes. He just looked tired there. 3 starts in 5 weeks. It was his 6th start of the year. And then he was also examined after the race, and then they did find some mucus in his lungs, which just could have been just too stressful, too many races in a short time frame for him. So they're going to give him a little bit of time, a little bit of a break from his training, and then they're going to target the Travers Stakes later this summer at Saratoga. Now, Protective, a maiden for trainer Todd Pletcher. He was 6th in the Belmont Stakes. Not really sure what the plans are for this one, but I think that they probably will back off, try to find a maiden special weight race, and get his confidence and get a victory under his belt. He's run in 3 straight graded stakes races now, and he did finish 3rd in 2 of those races, the Wood Memorial and the Peter Pan, and then 6th in the Belmont. So he just needs lesser company and he's just get a little confidence boosting victory. Now Resilience, he was 10th in the Belmont Stakes. He was tracking the pace from the inside post just like we expected that he would, but he just came up empty. He just didn't have anything to offer in the stretch. So the Wood Memorial winner, that race was at 1 mile and an eighth, and he probably wants 1 mile and an eighth or less. So I think that they're going to probably stick to shorter races, less than 1 mile and a quarter for him, possibly even dropping him into a grade 2 or grade 3 race. That would probably help his cause as well. We'll have to see what they do with Resilience, but it was really a no-show effort for him in the Belmont. He actually didn't run a bad race in the Kentucky Derby. He was a wide 6th. He had a outside post. I think he was breaking from post 18. Wide throughout. He was making a move the same time Mystik Dan did, but Mystik Dan was saving all the ground. And then he just ran out of gas late. Belmont wasn't sure if it was the distance or the trip. It was probably this distance and the trip, and he certainly proved that he couldn't handle 1 mile and a quarter in back-to-back starts now. So Seize the Gray for trainer D. Wayne Lucas, and he's another one just like Mystik Dan, ran out of steam in the Belmont Stakes. That was his 6th start of the year, 3rd start in 5 weeks. He was coming off a nice wire-to-wire victory in the Preakness Stakes, but in that Preakness Stakes, it was a speed-favoring wet track. Again, he caught a speed-favoring track at Saratoga, just couldn't keep going. Now, they said after the race, he had a couple cuts on his hind leg, but they said it was nothing serious. So he's possible for the Haskell, Jim Dandy, or Travers. We'll have to see what they do with him the second half of the year. He's going to be in these big races, and maybe they just need to give him a little bit of a break, kind of like Mystik Dan. Let him catch his breath, and then the second half of the year, maybe he can bounce back and get back to top form. Sierra Leone, he's clearly the most consistent runner in this crop. And he's going to have to jump up and win one of these big races, though, if he's going to win the 3-year-old title. Now, he was winning the Risen Star Stakes in his first start this year, and then he won the Grade 1 Bluegrass Stakes. And then in the Kentucky Derby, he lugged in the stretch. That cost him the victory. He lost by a nose, finishing 2nd. In the Belmont Stakes, he had a bumpy start. He actually stumbled a bit at the start, and then he was bumped around early, and then he was bumped again at the top of the stretch by Protective, and he just closed ground. It was like I said, it was a speed-favoring track, and the race flow was favoring horses that were on or near the lead. So Sierra Leone ran a quality race, finishing 3rd, galloped out in front, and for him, as a closer, things are going to happen like they did in the Belmont. You're going to have little things happen as a closer, not having a perfect trip. You need things to go right. And everything didn't quite come together for him, but he ran another quality race just like he always does. Doesn't matter if the track is wet or fast. Doesn't matter if the track is speed favoring or not. He just comes with the run. Even when, as a 2-year-old, when it was the Remsen Stakes and Dornoch beat him by a nose, speed favoring wet track, he closed anyway. Belmont Stakes, same thing. It wasn't a wet track, but it was a speed favoring track. He closed anyway. And he's been able to just overcome some things like stumbling at the start. As a closer, you're going to run into traffic, but he just runs his race anyway. but he wasn't, as I said, he wasn't able to quite put it all together, finishing third. So now, as the Travers Stakes, if he could win a race like that, he would certainly be the division leader, but you could say that for some of the others as well. Now, Stronghold, the Grade 1 Santa Anita Derby winner, he was 7th in the Kentucky Derby, and just like Resilience, he had an outside trip, and he was forwardly placed, and forwardly placed runners were compromised in the Kentucky Derby because the pace was fast, and it's set up for horses that were more patiently handled. And that was his first time that he finished out of the exacta in 7 starts. A very consistent horse prior to the Derby, and that wasn't an embarrassing effort at all. And he's had 3 workouts since the Kentucky Derby, including a 5 furlong work in a minute point 60 seconds, 12th best of 37 at Santa Anita on June 10th. And the Haskell Stakes, Phil D'Amato said, is a possible target for him. The Wine Steward, he was 9th in the Belmont Stakes. Well, they have plenty of options for this one. He's a New York bred son of Vino Rosso. He's 3 for 3 around 1 turn, and he hasn't won any races around 2 turns, but he's been competitive. So I think less ground definitely is in his future races. Now, prior to the Belmont Stakes, I said I didn't know if they were going to run there or not, but I said they should definitely consider running him in the Grade 3 Dwyer at Aqueduct on July 6th. That's a 1-turn mile, perfect distance for him. We'll have to see if they end up targeting that race. They could also run him in some New York bred stakes races. We'll have to see what they do with the Wine Steward. So that's a look at some of the horses that competed in the Triple Crown Series races and what's next for them. Now we'll look at some other 3-year-olds that did not compete in the Triple Crown Series, but could be players in these top races in the second half of the year. Beginning with Batten Down for trainer Bill Mott. Now, he was considered for the Belmont Stakes, but Bill Mott decided to take a more conservative approach and run in some lesser races first. And his next start would be his first start against winners. He broke his maiden in his last start at 1.25 miles on dirt. So he's possible for the Ohio Derby on June 22nd. And then other races are out there too. The Indiana Derby on July 6th, Iowa Derby on July 6th. We'll have to see if he shows up in one of those races or none of those races. But he breezed 5 furlongs in 101.55 seconds at Saratoga on June 10th. Muth, he was the Preakness morning line favorite for trainer Bob Baffert, but he got sick Preakness week and they had to scratch out of that race. He's back in California now and he seems to have recovered from that illness. He worked 4 furlongs in 47.80 seconds, 12th best of 50 at Santa Anita Park on June 10th. So they're targeting the Haskell at Monmouth Park, that stakes race, that Grade 1 race on July 20th. And for Bob Baffert, he's his trainer of Muth. He's won the Haskell Stakes 9 times. So Muth has that good early pressing speed that always plays well on the main track at Monmouth Park. And if he does get there and he's able to stay healthy and run in the Haskell Stakes, he would be a serious contender. Nysos for trainer Bob Baffert. We just haven't heard any word on him. He won the Grade 3 Robert Lewis Stakes earlier this year. He's unbeaten, but no published workouts in the last 60 days and no updates on Nysos on when he's coming back. Now, Parenting, another horse for trainer Bob Baffert, and he's very promising and certainly one that could make some noise the second half of the year in some of these bigger graded races. He's 2 for 2 for trainer Bob Baffert, and he won the Affirm Stakes at Santa Anita Park by 7.5 lengths on June 9th. And for fans of the Beyer speed figures, he got a 95 Beyer speed figure for that victory. And it looked good, too. He was powering away in the stretch. Visually impressive. He was geared down. $750,000 Justify colt. Lemon Drop Kid is the dam sire. He's definitely bred to run all day. And definitely an exciting 3-year-old the second half of the year. We'll see what they do next with Parenting. Prince of Monaco, another Bob Baffert trainee. But this one runs in sprint races, or at least he did last time, and it looks like sprint races could be his future. And his first start of the year, since running 5th in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, he finally returned in the Grade 1 Woody Stevens Stakes at Saratoga at 7 furlongs. That was on the Belmont Stakes undercard, and he rallied to finish second. He was beaten a half length. He was my tough choice in that race. He was training well. He ran a quality race. And we'll have to see if he does return to Saratoga for the Grade 1 H. Allen Jerkins Memorial at 7 furlongs on the Travers Stakes undercard on August 24th. The Prince of Monaco in those shorter races, second half of the year, could be a player. Society Man. Now for trainer Danny Gargan, he's Dornoch's stablemate, and he was 2nd in the Wood Memorial, and then he was 16th in the Kentucky Derby. but then he rebounded with a nice victory in the Grade 3 Mat Win Stakes at Churchill Downs on June 9th. Great ride by Corey Lanerie. He won it by a couple lengths, and they said he's possible for the Jim Dandy Stakes. And then a 3-year-old filly that probably won't take on the boys, but they have to be thinking about it, is Thorpedo Anna. Now she's going to remain at Saratoga. She won the Acorn Stakes. They considered her for the Belmont. They decided to run Mystik Dan. He didn't run well. They ran her in the Acorn Stakes. She romped in that race, just like she did in the Kentucky Oaks. So she's one that's 3 for 3 this year. She's been outstanding and untouchable in those 3 races. And at this point, Kenny McPeak says he's targeting the Coaching Club American Oaks at Saratoga on July 20th. And then the Alabama, the Grade 1 Alabama at 1.25 miles at Saratoga on August 17th. And McPeak also said he has his eye on Horse of the Year for her. So, and I think the thinking here is that maybe she can run the table in the filly division, and then the males keep taking turns beating each other. And then at the end of the year, she's unbeaten and she's the Horse of the Year. We'll have to see how that all plays out, or if they do at some point this year decide to take on the boys. Tuscan Gold, the final one I'll talk about for trainer Chad Brown, 4th in the Preakness Stakes. Now they did consider him for the Belmont, but he didn't enter the race. So he's only run 4 times, and he was 3rd in the Louisiana Derby and then 4th in the Preakness last time. He didn't handle that wet track. So more distance is good for him. Fast track, definitely good for him. And he most recently worked 4 furlongs in 48.38 seconds at Saratoga on June 1st. Future plans are unknown for him, and we'll have to see what they end up doing. So those are the look at the horses for the Triple Crown Series, and then that didn't run in the Triple Crown Series. And I think at this point, if I had to pick a horse that was the leader of the division and possibly going to win the 3-year-old title, I would just say Sierra Leone, just because he's so consistent. As I said, he won the Risen Star, and that was a wet track. And then he won the Bluegrass Stakes as well. That was a Grade 1. And then he missed by a nose in the Kentucky Derby. And then he was a solid 3rd in the Belmont Stakes. But he's going to have to win another one of these Grade 1 races like the Travers if he wants to win that title as top 3-year-old. Now, another one with Mindframe, obviously, but he's going to have to jump up and run a stakes race and win one because he hasn't had any stakes victories yet. He's only run 3 times. And a maiden win, and then an allowance win, and then a decent second in the Belmont Stakes. So he's going to have to win some stakes races if he's going to be considered for that 3-year-old title. And then, as I said, for the Derby, Preakness, and Belmont winners, Dornoch won the Belmont. He's going to have to show consistency. Same with Mystik Dan. Same with Seize the Grey. They're going to have to jump up and prove that those victories were for real. And then some other horses that didn't run in the Triple Crown Series that could be in the running for the 3-year-old title. Muth is definitely a possibility for Bob Baffert. He's already a Grade 1 winner this year, winning the Arkansas Derby. And then if he could add another Grade 1 in the Haskell Stakes, he could be in a good position. And then maybe they run him in the Pennsylvania Derby, and maybe he wins that as well. And then all of a sudden he would have 3 Grade 1 victories, and he would be a solid threat for the 3-year-old title as well. And then a late bloomer like Parenting for trainer Bob Baffert really looked good in that Affirm Stakes. Didn't beat much, but he was outstanding winning that race. And he's one to take a look at the second half of the year. I think he could definitely be one that could get up on the pace in some of these bigger races and hang around a long time. So that's my look at the 3-year-old division heading into the second half of 2024. Again, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment, and share these videos if you like them. And keep checking my YouTube channel. I've got some more videos planned later this week. And I'm going to keep doing videos all summer long. Del Mar, Saratoga, a whole bunch of handicapping videos coming up. Handicapping video series on how to bet races. All kinds of stuff planned for the YouTube channel. And until I see you next time, good luck at the races.